Hi, this is Dane County Executive Joe Parisi, and welcome to this month's podcast. This month, we're going to be talking to Kim Jones, the director of the Dane County Regional Airport. Kim, welcome.
Well, thank you so much, Joe. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here with you today.
That's great. I'm really excited about this conversation we're going to have today. I think most people will agree, folks who have been to our airport, that for a community of our size, Dane County has one of the finest and nicest airports in the nation. And that's not just from people around here, that's kind of objectively if you talk to people who have flown in and out of here. And we're very fortunate to have such a convenient and comprehensive facility right in our backyard in the Dane County area. And it's not only folks from here, but folks from beyond come to fly out of our airport. I personally love to fly and I love airports. And so I'm really excited about being able to talk with you about this today. And Kim, one of the exciting things at our airport, maybe we should just, kick off with, is the fact that we just completed, we've always had a really nice airport, but we just completed a major expansion project to the terminal at the airport. So I was wondering if maybe we could start, Kim, with you just giving folks kind of an overview about the Dane County Regional Airport in general, and then maybe talk a little bit about our terminal and the services that we have to offer there for folks.
Oh, absolutely. I am so passionate about our airport and I love to talk about it. We certainly do have a world-class facility, and I like to say it's for a world-class community that deserves this type of facility. Our whole goal is to make the facility as accessible as possible to everyone and to make sure that we can encourage and facilitate the airlines and other services that are needed to enhance a person's travel experience. Our airport, pre-pandemic, we were on a huge double-digit growth pattern year over year. We had reached 1.2 million passengers leaving our airport every year. That meant that we were close to 2.5 million people who were actually using the airport. Right now, we're back to about 1.9 million travelers per year. And that's a significant number and means that we're headed in the right direction. So during the pandemic, we had to make a decision. Do we continue forward with the growth that was planned for the airport physical facilities, or did we put a halt to that and a wait and see approach? Well, we were very confident that the travelers would return. People love to travel, people love to explore and get out. And so we decided to press ahead with the expansion project, knowing that it may not be used right away to its full capacity, but that would come. So on June 6th of this year, we welcomed our first flight arrival in the new expansion. And thank you to you and several of our other local business partners that were there to help open that terminal and have a grand kickoff for that event. So we were very excited about that. We broke ground on that project in the spring of 2021, and it was an $85 million multi-year project to update and expand the airport's terminal. That's a 90,000 square foot addition to the south terminal. It adds 3 gates and it paves the way for larger planes, more flights, and more passengers. The area that we had previously where you would walk down that little slope, that was designed back in the early 2000s when the goal was to have a lot of regional jets who didn't carry as many passengers, and that didn't pan out to be a realistic situation for the airlines. Instead, they're bringing bigger and bigger airplanes to our facility, and some of our gates just did not handle those planes in a good fashion. So we needed to not just expand the number of gates that we had, but also to make them more accessible to the types of planes that the airlines are flying. For example, wide body, longer planes, larger seat capacity, things like that, because we wanted our community to have the most up-to-date and best of that there was available to be had. This 90,000 square foot addition has 45,000 on the top floor, 45,000 on the bottom floor. The top floor is public space and gate area, and the bottom floor is more for our maintenance workshops and airport infrastructure. We are truly an economic engine to South Central Wisconsin, and we want to continue to provide the facilities that will continue to grow that economic impact that we have on the community. You know, it was important to us to make the terminal expansion as sustainable as possible, as well as accessible as possible. To that end, we added several features that had not been there before. That included a lot of guest amenities. Nearly every restroom has like a toddler seat within each stall to accommodate the needs of the traveling mother or father. We have parental lounges that allow for some leisure time, comfortable seating for nursing mothers, as well as a small refrigerator and microwave. It has its own sink in there to accommodate the needs of those travelers. We also have the adorable toddler restroom with the little tiny toilets and the little tiny sinks, which has been a big hit as well. And one of the coolest areas in my mind is our pet relief area. We do see a significant number of service animals as well as its general pets that come through the terminal, and we needed to have facilities for those. So they have their own little restroom with bench seating for their owners and their own little fountains with foot controls for the owner to use as well. Very cute. And we have little paw prints in the tile floor that lead you into those restrooms. So very adorable in my mind. We also have a family area that is significant in that it offers children a space to play. We have an interactive wall screen game system, if you will, where the child can put their hands up like this and interact. It's interesting. We've seen a lot more adults trying that out so far than we have children. Although when the children do engage with it, it's very popular. We also have really soft seating in that area, soft flooring. We have different art features throughout the terminal. And in that area, it's bright, bold colors and circular designs that carries out into the main terminal as well. Now, we know that a key portion of our travelers are business travelers. Pre-pandemic, we knew that about 60% of our travelers were actually business travelers. And knowing that we're not there today, but that we hope to get there again, we wanted to make sure that they had the facilities they needed as well. So we have some beautiful glass walled off meeting rooms that have some soundproofing and allows travelers to go in there, just get a little space away. If there's a couple traveling together, a few people, to have that meeting area, if you will, to be able to have that time away from the general public. We have other soft seating areas. We have what we call the living room, which is as you first enter the new expansion. Lots of charging stations, if you will, for people with phones and iPads and tablets, things like that. And that will also be able to handle a system where they can order food from that area and have it delivered to them. Now, when you enter the terminal, in that area of the terminal, you may notice that we don't have the restaurants and gift shops yet. The pandemic took a terrible toll on our partners in that regards as well. We had planned expansion at the north end of the terminal that was to include new restaurants and new gift shop facilities. Unfortunately, those were put on hold during the pandemic. And so as we come out from the pandemic and recover, we need to get the north end expansion completed and redesign and remodel before they can start to focus on the south end. So at the north end, you'll notice a great new addition called Capitol Commons, which our partner Parodies has opened for retail and gift needs at that end. It's a beautiful facility, and I encourage everybody to stop in and see that. Also under development that will be open before the holiday season is a restaurant called Look Mom No Hands. And that will be a bicycle themed restaurant where you'll order at the counter. The food will be served to you at the table. And those are both at the north end of the terminal. Once those are complete, they'll be able to focus more on the south end at our new terminal expansion. They actually have some designs that they're looking at for preliminary concepts at that area. And once we have reached a decision on those, I think they'll move forward further with the design and implementation of the construction for those projects.
And of course, you have some of the standbys that are there that remain there, like Metcalf's Market, Grab and Go, Ancora Coffee, and some of those kinds of places too, right?
Absolutely, we do. Yep, we've made sure that we kept the standards that had a lot of local presence that people knew and appreciated. So we continue to partner with local chefs. We're looking at relationships with new local chefs as well to continue those types of partnerships into the development of the new area at the south end as well.
That's great. I'm struck by what a thoughtful process the expansion must have been. I mean, when you think of airports, you don't really always think of family friendly. A lot of people feel more like they're on a conveyor belt getting from point A to point B. But all of those different amenities for families as well as business travelers really speak to the thought that went into this and kind of the importance that we place upon the people who are flying.
It's very important to our entire team at the airport to make sure that people have the best experience possible when they come through our airport. We work with our partners to make sure that they understand that that's our expectation of them as well. Mm-hmm. Does it always happen? No. You know, particularly now, you're hearing a lot about summer travel with the airlines and the delays that brings with it. And we know that some of those are inevitable, but what we want is that when those things do happen, they have a positive result and positive resolution to the matter when they're at our airport, and that they're treated decently and with respect.
Yeah, and I think that whole experience is really what drives people to use our airport. It's certainly why I like to fly out of our airport. When I don't know if folks realize, and we can talk in a minute about nonstop flights, but the fact that you can basically get anywhere in the world in one stop from Dane County. My wife and I went to Italy last month, and we flew out of Madison. It's so much more pleasurable than having to go to Chicago and deal with long TSA lines and the commute and parking or the bus and whatever you have to do, and then take off from there. When you can just, in my case, it's a 20-minute cab ride to the airport from my home. You can take off from home, you can land at home, and it just makes the whole experience a lot nicer and a lot more convenient.
I appreciate hearing you say that, because that means that we're meeting the expectations that we have of ourselves and our partners. And, with the parking ramps that we have, that was a goal too, to have the parking close in for those people who chose to drive themselves. Yeah. We have facility locations for those people using the transportation network companies. And one of the newer concepts are Airbnb, if you will, for vehicles. That's a new concept that's coming into play. So we want to make sure that we have the facilities available to meet all of those needs, regardless of what their choices are. And I'm so glad to hear that you had a good experience going to Italy. We do pride ourselves on the fact that we try to keep the air service at a level where you can go one stop to the world.
Yeah. And so speaking of flights and stops and nonstops, one of the things that people always wonder about and ask about, and of course we all, would love to have, is nonstop flights to anywhere in the world we want to go. Now, unless you're Chicago or Atlanta or somewhere like that, you're not going to get that. But we do incredibly well for a community of our size. And as you mentioned, particularly before the pandemic, the numbers were up. I think we probably had a record number of nonstop flights. And of course, then the pandemic came and it slammed us pretty hard. Could you talk a little bit about, you touched on it briefly, but that trajectory we were on as far as nonstop flights, what we had picked up, where we were going, and what we lost during the pandemic, and then what are our efforts and chances of getting some of those back and expanding again beyond the nonstop flights that we have? And one more question, as long as we're in there, it's a lot, but we can come back to it. People, I think, are also curious about, how do we even go about getting nonstops? Is that something we decide? Well, we're going to have a nonstop flight here from United to go there, or is that in the airport's hands? And maybe you could talk about that process too for us.
Absolutely. So we want to have as many nonstop flights as we possibly can have, and we don't say to the airlines, don't bring a flight here because we don't like that destination. No, we'll take anything that they offer. A good example of that is recently we had a call with one of the carriers where they wanted to tell us about a new flight they were going to be offering. We got really excited. We thought it was going to be to a new destination. And as it turned out, it was a second flight to an existing destination. But we still celebrated and said, hey, anything that we get is a win, because we have very little control over where the airlines fly from our airport. We go to as many events as we can. Pre-pandemic, because we had such a strong business market here, we were able to go to the airlines and say, hey, we want to come meet with you and talk to you about what we'd like. And they would say, come on out to our headquarters. Well, that all stopped during the pandemic for multiple reasons. And slowly those are starting to come back. So in the meantime, we actually go to an event called Jumpstart, which the best way to define it is speed dating with airlines. You get 20 minutes to present your case. And I try to get us signed up with as many airlines as possible. This year it was hosted by Milwaukee. It travels around the country at different airports hosting. And we felt that we were very successful. We walked away from that knowing that we were going to at least get one, maybe two opportunities to go to their headquarters, which is what's called headquarters visits. And that's the goal, is to get yourself in front of them at headquarters, because now you don't have 20 minutes, you have an hour, and you have the undivided attention of usually a larger number of key executives in the airline responsible for scheduling and route planning. So we're going to actually be going to visit one of those airlines. It would be a new carrier if we're successful, and we'll be going there in October. So the airport is constantly monitoring, where are the airlines traveling? What are they doing? What are new airlines? There's a couple that a lot of people hear about lately, Breeze and Avelo. You'll see those in the news as providing new service at other airports. We're working to do whatever we possibly can to get service here. One of the key things that I know the community here would love to have are the nonstops back for San Francisco and Los Angeles. And those are key markets that we really want to see. So when we go to the airlines and we talk to them, whether it's for 20 minutes or an hour, we try to give them all the reasons why they should do that. Now, they know more about our community demographics than we do probably, but what they don't know are little facts that only we can know. So we try to take those, and that's what will really sell in a destination. A lot of people think that, well, the airport rates and charges are what causes it. That has nothing to do with it in reality. Such a small percentage of an airline's cost that it's really a non-factor in the decision. What they're really looking for is sustainable service, because communities get really angry when you offer them these incentives to come into your airport and provide the service, and then when those incentives are gone, they leave. So that's not the kind of service that we want to see at our airport. We want to see the long-term sustainable service. We'll do whatever we can possible to bring new service to our community.
Yeah. So Kim, I'm curious. So you mentioned LA and San Francisco, and I remember what a win San Francisco was for us, when we got that pre-pandemic, and, hopefully we can get it back again. And I'm just wondering how do you convince someone, and how do we even know if they'll be able to fill up planes? Are there some analogs and data? How do they know people are going to fly from Madison to San Francisco? Are there processes that look at people from Madison flying out of Milwaukee, or how does that work? Or is it an industry kind of magic? I don't know.
Well, it's a little bit of both, to tell you the truth. Some of it is just good luck.
Yeah.
Right now, the airlines are facing their own issues with pilot shortages and in some cases, aircraft shortages. You have a limited number of aircraft. They want to maximize the revenue that they're going to get from each of those aircraft, particularly if they don't have enough pilots to fly some of the aircraft that they have. Some of the airlines have aging fleets that they're trying to swap out, get rid of, things like that. So they have a number of their own factors that they're looking at. Then we have to look at those and say, okay, how can we convince them that we're the best bargain or the best place for them to go? And it may be, there are records that will show how many people we have going per day each way to these different destinations. What that doesn't factor in is the fact that that's what it is today with one stop. If it was nonstop, those numbers could be much higher. So we try to convince them that, look, we have 25 people a day that go there ultimately. But if we had a nonstop, that would be 60 people or whatever those numbers may be.
And you probably don't know how many people are driving or taking a bus to another airport and then flying from there, right?
No, there are what they call leakage studies that try to look at that, but it's very difficult to have those with any real degree of certainty.
Right. And then you made the point to me earlier when we were talking about this, that there's also, the community can do a lot to get the airline's attention. It's kind of the use it or lose it, right? It's when these flights, the flights that we have, use them, fly out of Dane County's airport. And especially when we get a new flight, use those flights. Because at the end of the day, like you said, it's the airlines, they're looking at their bottom line. How many bodies are they getting in those planes, right?
Absolutely. That is the most important thing that I could impart to our community today or any day, is if we have the service, use it or we could lose it. That's the most important thing. Once they've taken the risk to put that flight into our community, they want to see that that flight is successful. If they don't see that happening and they see an opportunity elsewhere, they will pull that flight and that crew and they will take it elsewhere.
So Kim, where were we approximately before the pandemic, and where are we at now as far as number of nonstop flights approximately?
So it's difficult to count and for people to understand. If I say pre-pandemic, we had 27 destinations nonstop. But at any given day, when you'd go out and look, you might not see 27 because some of them were seasonal. So on any given day, you might see 18 or 19. But in reality, if you counted all of the destinations that at some point throughout the year you could get to, we were at 27. We're currently at about 15. So we're still down quite a bit. Some of that is due to leisure travel, low-cost carriers. We don't have a lot of low-cost carrier competition in our market. We do have two low-cost carriers, Frontier and Sun Country, and they provide a certain amount of service. We're looking at both of those, trying to encourage them to increase the amount of service. The more you can have a true low-cost carrier, the better the fares will be and the better opportunity you have for more destinations that are seasonal. We've had seasonal destinations in Florida. We've had seasonal destinations along the East Coast. Boston is a huge one that people would love to have permanently year-round, but we have just not been able to be successful with that yet.
Yeah, and I have a lot of confidence that you will continue to get these back, because I know, as you said, you're meeting with with airlines, and just to see the momentum that you and your team had going before the pandemic. We are somewhat of a proven entity, but like you said, for all those reasons, it takes a while to build all of that back, getting back in with the airlines, and some of it's just out of our control. But I can definitely sense, especially with the airport terminal expansion also, as you mentioned, that opens up other possibilities as well.
It does. And it truly is all out of our control. We do the best we can to encourage, flights and action on their behalf. The other thing that we try to watch is the fares, because we know that our community is very cognizant of the airfares that we have here. And while we have no control over those as well, if we know that something is just really, really out of line, we will let the airline know and ask them to look at it. Are we successful? Maybe once or twice in a given number of years, but we're aware of that. And what people should understand is that when the Bureau of Transportation Statistics puts that data out that says we're among the highest fared airports in the country, they are looking at the top 100 airports by the number of passengers that they have. We always fall in the last 5 or so of that list. So the smaller you are, it's just normal to expect that you'll have higher fares. If they looked at the top 150 airports, we would not be in the top 5 list.
Well, and it's not always apples to apples in other ways too. I mean, we talked about the scenario earlier. If you're driving to Chicago, if you drive, you're paying gas, you're paying tolls, you're paying, whatever it costs to park in their ramp the whole time, plus, 2.5, 3 hours of your life driving there and back each way. So it's not always as cut and dry as it might seem on the surface. Not only are there expenses to getting to those places and back, again, just all of that time that you just will never get back doing the commute. So that convenience really factors in, for me and for a lot of folks as well. It's just, as I said, it's such an easy airport to get in and out of and to fly from and to get through TSA, you name it. It's just a really pleasant experience.
That's our goal, to make it that way. And it's especially important, with families with small children that drive home after a full day of travel and cranky kids and what have you. It can be a lot. And it's so much nicer to be able to just come home, walk across the street, get in your car and go home.
Yeah. Well, and now, especially with the amenities that you mentioned in the terminal, you're just not going to find that in a lot of places. So, Kim, apparently you informed me that people, I don't know if it's groups or anyone who would like, can actually get tours of the airport. Could you talk a little bit about that and who goes on those tours and what they get to see, how that works?
Absolutely. We are so excited about the new South Terminal expansion that we offered up tours of that area. We haven't really talked about the great piece of art at the end of that expansion, but that's a huge thing that people want to come and see. If you go to our website, msnairport.com, there's an opportunity to sign up. One from the public can sign up. We're going to be doing these tours for a limited amount of time, and they are limited number of people per tour because they're going into areas that are behind the scenes and areas that are post security, meaning that they have to be escorted since they're not going to be a traveling ticketed passenger. So they get to go see the first floor of the terminal and the areas that we have there, the maintenance shops, the support for the restaurant and gift shop that will be coming. They get to see the actual terminal itself. For people who may be flying out, currently we have American Airlines down there, but you may notice if you're there that we still have some construction going on. That's because we had to remove the old part of the terminal to make room for this new part. And some of the gates aren't able to be used yet until that old part is completely torn off and removed. So at this time, American Airlines is the only airline using that new area. But if you're going to be traveling with American or with any other airline, once you get past security, you have access to this area. So we want people to know that. We want them to have the opportunity to take the tour and see particularly if they're traveling with a person with special needs or children or the business traveler, they want to see, well, what am I going to have available when I get there? We have an adult restroom with an adult changing table, which is really trend setting, if you will, for our industry. That has not been the case for a lot of airports yet. So we're really ahead of the times there. And then at the far south end of that terminal expansion, we have the beautiful lakes artwork on the floor. It is a tile representation of the entire chain of lakes here in the Madison area. It highlights the state capitol. It highlights the Badger Stadium and the airport, of course, with a couple of the runways identified. There's boat ramps and parks, and it's absolutely gorgeous. I can't say enough about it. So people are welcome to sign up for the tour just to see that if they'd like.
That's great. And even if people aren't on the tour, if you said in the older terminal, they're not very far apart. You can just walk to the end and walk in. That's again the beauty of our airport, is it's big enough but small enough at the same time. Kim, finally, as a kind of an addendum to the tour conversation, you're also involved with organizations that help folks with developmental disabilities who might have anxiety around flying. Is that correct? And could you talk a little bit about that program?
Sure. We work with ARC of Dane County, and we have hosted their Wings for All program, and we hope to do that again soon. It's a great opportunity for families of persons with special needs to come out and get the experience of actually flying, going through the security, checking in for your flight, that type of thing, without actually going anywhere. Mm-hmm. This gives them an idea of what to expect when that actually happens. We also have, while we don't have classes, we do offer opportunities for people, maybe an adult who's just never flown and doesn't know what to expect. We can do one-on-one tours or tours with small family groups of someone who's maybe just a little bit afraid of the flying experience. Or are they going to be able to find a place to take their animal, their service animal? Or are they going to find what they need in terms of being able to have access to water? Those types of things. It's really surprising how much people don't know about airports. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the primary goal of our team, is to educate people, because people don't know what to expect often. And really key is that they don't know who does what. That in and of itself is just amazing. When I first got into the industry, it was like, you mean the airports aren't responsible for the luggage? The airlines do that? Yeah, the airlines take the luggage off the plane and they deliver it to the conveyor belts for you to pick up, the bag belts as we call them. So we don't do that. But there's so many people who don't know any of these things that we just want to encourage people to come out, see us, call us, arrange tours, do whatever you want to do to make us part of your community experience.
I'm so impressed by the approach that you and your staff take toward the community. And be it the earlier discussion we had about the designs, the family-friendly designs, your willingness to work with people who might have anxiety about flying. It's kind of this almost this small town kind of atmosphere in big city access to the world. It's really something, and it just speaks volumes about you and your staff. And it reminds me of, I didn't tell you I was going to talk about this, but I want to, because it's a reflection of you and your staff and the approach you take. It reminds me of a few years ago, before the pandemic, when we were involved with working with some communities that work with people with developmental disabilities, and we met a young woman who inspired all of us, and her dream was to go to San Francisco one day. And we just kind of met her, and she told us about San Francisco. She wasn't talking about actually going there or flying there, but she was just very in love with San Francisco. And you and your team talked to the airlines, and you arranged not only a flight for her, a free flight to San Francisco, but also a place to stay while she was there so she could see the Golden Gate Bridge, which was a dream of her life. And so you created this dream come true scenario for this young woman and her family. And I just think that's just another reflection of the fact that this isn't just a job for you all. You're passionate about the airport, but it's really the people who use it that you're passionate about. So, thank you so much for that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that because that really does mean a lot. That young lady did inspire all of us. And I'm so glad that the team was able to work with our partners locally and in California to make that happen for her and to give her that experience. And I have to put in a plug here for the team at the airport, Joe. I absolutely have to. I am blessed with the most wonderful team that will go above and beyond and who know the values that I have and that I want for our airport and that they have and share as well, and do a great job getting that message out there and being available to the public as needed. I have staff who have gone above and beyond and dug in trash cans for people who have lost items or ran out to the parking lot with items that somebody found. And so I'm really pleased with that, and I'm glad that you're able to recognize that and see that.
Yeah. I mean, I remember coming into the airport once. I think I was dropping my daughter off. It was like 4 a.m. and it was during the construction of the construction phase in the parking ramp, and it was people were confused, and they would have been confused if there were just signs. But you had your people out there. They were out there at 4 a.m. telling people how to get to where they were going, smiling at them. They weren't they weren't short with anyone, and it was 4 a.m, right? And they were just, you just go over there. They made it very simple, but beyond that was just the warmth with which they were doing their job. It was so impressive. So yeah, I join you in just thanking everyone at the airport, all of the staff there. You all do such an amazing job. It's just a pleasure, and that's part of the experience that people get when they go to the airport. It's because of the attitude that the team brings toward public service. So I want to close soon. I think that's a nice place to start to begin to draw to a conclusion. But Kim, I am curious if I could just ask you kind of as we wrap up, you are one of the few female executives in the airport industry. You're a leader of the Dane County Regional Airport. You interact, I know that, you interact nationally and internationally with folks all the time. Could you talk to us a little bit about, your experience and what this work means to you, not just as a woman, but as an individual? Obviously, this is something you're passionate about, but the fact that you are kind of, a trendsetter in that way too, a woman in this industry. I'm wondering how that is for you and how that feels.
Well, thank you. You're right. I do participate at a national level for the benefit of our airport. We are considered by the FAA a small hub airport, and we have special needs, but small hub airports also represent the largest number of airports in the country. So we have a voice that needs to be heard, and I want to make sure that we are heard because that's important to our community. And it's very interesting sometimes when I'm at these meetings, I walk into the room and I'm the only female in there. Or maybe there's 2 or 3 others, maybe. So it is typically a male-dominated industry. A lot of that stemmed from, post-military, careers and things like that. People who had been in related type fields in the military and came over to the airports. But as you look around, you're starting to see more and more diversity. Not just females, but just diversity in general in the leadership. And if you look at some of the key airports across the country, you'll see what I'm talking about. But it is such a good feeling to know that we're part of that movement, if you will, to open the industry up to more people. And we bring that back home too, and trying to encourage locally students and people to become part of the knowledge of the airport and what it can do to you for you as a career. Recently, we hosted the Willa Brown Academy for a couple of days at the airport, and we work with other educational groups to try and make sure that people know what there is available. And so I'm passionate about people. Yeah, I say I'm passionate about the airport, but I'm really passionate about people and what the airport can do for people. When you look at an airport, it's a place of stories. Everybody that comes into this airport has a story. And sometimes we're privileged enough to be able to know that story. It's a good one, it can be a bad one, it can be really sad. But people are there for a reason, and we're there to make that reason and that situation be as just perfect as it can be. We don't always succeed, but we do our best.
Well, thank you, Kim. I appreciate it. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you and your team for the great experiences that you provide at the Dane County Regional Airport. And we look forward to seeing how the next year goes as we continue to work on getting more flights, as folks get used to the new terminal. It's been a pleasure having you here.
Well, thanks so much, Joe. I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, thank you, Kim. So that's it for today's podcast. This has been a really fascinating talk about the Dane County Regional Airport. So thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Dane County Podcast.